Why your bug-out bag will not save you. The harsh historical truth about collapse. What if everything the prepper industry sold you was a lie? What if the one thing standing between you and financial ruin is not a bag of supplies, but something far more powerful and far more uncomfortable to talk about? History has already answered this question, and the answer will shock you. Stay until the end, because the truth revealed here could literally change how you think about money, survival, and the future. And if you want more content that challenges conventional wisdom and arms you with real financial knowledge, subscribe right now. Let's begin. Every year, millions of people spend thousands of dollars building bug-out bags. They pack freeze-dried food, water filters, emergency radios, and tactical gear, convinced they are ready for anything. But here is the brutal, historically documented truth. In every major economic and societal collapse in modern history, the bug-out bag failed. Not because the gear was bad, because the entire strategy was wrong. When Argentina's economy imploded in 2001, nobody survived by running into the wilderness with a backpack. Argentina's GDP shrank by nearly 20%. Unemployment soared above 20%. And over half the population fell below the poverty line by 2002. That is not a survival movie. That is real life for 44 million people. And not one of them was saved by a bug-out bag, okay? What actually saved people were barter networks called reeds de truc, where professionals swapped goods and services. Someone might repair a washing machine and receive 6 eggs, or do accounts and get their car fixed. That is the truth your survival gear seller does not want you to know. Community saved Argentina, okay? Skills saved Argentina. Relationships saved Argentina. By early 2001, there were several dozen alternative currencies in circulation across Greater Buenos Aires and neighboring provinces, created by the barter networks themselves. Think about that. Ordinary people invented their own financial system because the official one collapsed. Some 5,000 barter clubs spread across the country, and an estimated $400 million worth of goods was traded through them. No bug-out bag created that. No freeze-dried food kit built that network. Human ingenuity and trust in other humans did. In Buenos Aires, community gardens, called huertas comunitarias, sprang up, accompanied by community kitchens, as whole arms of the national government ceased to function properly. The people who ate were not the ones who fled. They were the ones who stayed and organized. Workers who lost their jobs took over idle businesses. They broke the locks, turned on the lights, started up the equipment, and ran things themselves. That is what collapse really looks like. Not a Mad Max movie, a desperate, messy, cooperative scramble. Now, let us talk about Venezuela, because this story gets even darker and more instructive. Venezuela's crisis is considered the single largest economic collapse outside of war in at least 45 years, according to the Institute of International Finance in 2019. This was not a poor country that collapsed. Venezuela once sat on the largest proven oil reserves on Earth. Living standards in Venezuela plummeted by a staggering 74% between 2013 and 2023, one of the 5 largest falls in living standards in modern economic history, 74% in a decade, while the country was floating on oil. The Central Bank of Venezuela estimates inflation increased by 53,798,500% between 2016 and April 2019. That number is not a typo. 53 million % inflation. The 2017 Christmas season, some shops stopped using price tags entirely because prices would inflate so quickly between stocking shelves and checkout. Imagine going to buy groceries and the cashier calculates a new price on the spot, and it might be double what it was an hour ago. Some Venezuelans began playing online video games like RuneScape, slaying in-game currency for real dollars. They could earn more farming virtual gold than their salary jobs paid. That is how broken the financial system became. Now, here is the critical lesson. Did bug-out bags save Venezuelans? Did tactical gear? Did emergency food kits? By 2019, approximately 7.7 million Venezuelans, around 25% of the entire population, had fled the country altogether. They did not bug out into the forest. They immigrated. They moved to Colombia, Peru, Chile, Spain. They used social networks, family connections, and whatever money they could convert into foreign currency to survive. To protect themselves, Venezuelans started converting their savings into more stable currencies like the US dollar. Those who did not lost everything to hyperinflation. The people with foreign currency accounts, or who had diversified their savings internationally before the collapse, survived far better than anyone with a warehouse full of supplies. Financial preparation, not physical preparation, was the real survival tool. I go back further in history to the greatest economic catastrophe the modern Western world ever faced. The Great Depression began when the stock market crashed in October 1929, triggering a global crisis through interconnected gold standard links, followed by a rash of bank failures in 1930. Between 1929 and 1933, unemployment in the United States jumped from 3.2% to 24.9%, representing 12.8 million workers, with some cities seeing unemployment as high as 80%. 80% unemployment. Nearly every adult in some American cities had no income. Consumer spending declined 18%, manufacturing output dropped 54%, and construction spending plummeted 78% during this same period. This was a total, systemic collapse of the financial world as people knew it. So what saved Americans? Bagged bags did not exist yet, but the instinct to isolate and hoard was very real, and it failed. In the countryside, community networks offered a safety net for the most vulnerable. Children were sent from farms to live with employed relatives in cities, and families doubled up their living space to shelter relatives out of work. The people who did well during this difficult time were often those who could depend on family and friends and be depended on by others in return. Read that again. The survivors were the ones embedded in communities, not the ones who isolated themselves with supplies. Some communities organized what they called surprise parties, where they would collect food, necessities, and cash, then designate a particular struggling family to receive everything at each gathering. Communities invented mutual aid systems spontaneously. Nobody issued a government order for this. People simply understood that isolation meant death. The bounty of backyard gardens was shared with neighbors and hungry passersby, while barns became overnight shelters for the homeless. Social capital, not physical capital, was the true survival currency. Now, let us bring this brutally home to the financial reality you face today. The earliest recorded economic collapse occurred in 176 BC, when the Roman Republic experienced a severe financial crisis leading to massive inflation and debasement of currency. The government's response was to issue more coins with decreased silver content, worsening hyperinflation and causing sharp declines in purchasing power. That was over 2,000 years ago, and the pattern has not changed once. Every collapse in human history has followed the same arc. Governments debase currency. Purchasing power evaporates, supply chains break, and the most vulnerable are wiped out first. Rarely does a single event lead to collapse. It is a series of events and conditions that make a country's society and institutions a fragile house of cards. Here is what that means for you today. Collapse is not a sudden event you can outrun with a bag on your back. It is a slow erosion, weeks, months, sometimes years of degrading systems that rewards the financially prepared and destroys the financially complacent. Once things collapse initially, many systems cease to function, sometimes not all at once. Electricity, modern medical care, advanced education, manufacturing, rapid transportation, all of it begins to fail. People who rely on modern technology and infrastructure to remain alive without any financial backup are the most exposed of all. So, what does the historical record actually tell us to do? First, hold hard assets that cannot be inflated away. Gold, foreign currencies, and real estate in stable regions have preserved wealth through every collapse on record. Second, build genuine reciprocal relationships in your community. In Syria and Venezuela, informal economies, barter systems, and mutual aid networks emerged to sustain daily life in the absence of functioning state institutions. The people with those networks ate. The people without them did not. Third, develop skills that others need. In historical collapses, shift to subsistence farming ensured food security in the absence of large-scale trade. But the broader lesson was that practical, tradable skills drove survival. A surgeon, a mechanic, a farmer, a builder. These people were never short of barter leverage in any collapse. Fourth, understand that the financial system itself is the battleground. Argentina's economy shrank by nearly 20%. The peso went from 1 won with the dollar to 4 pesos per dollar, and prices rose by 40% almost immediately after the currency peg broke. If your entire net worth is held in one currency, in one country's banking system, you are one policy decision away from poverty. Fifth, geography matters, but not the way preppers think. Surviving economic collapse is rarely about fleeing to the woods. Venezuela's exodus of 7.7 million people represents massive loss of human capital that will handicap the nation's recovery for decades. Those who left early with savings in foreign currency fared significantly better than those who stayed without financial preparation. The exit strategy was financial, not physical. Here is the most shocking truth of all. Backed by decades of historical evidence across multiple continents, the prepper who spends $10,000 on gear and $0 on financial diversification is far less prepared than the person who spends $10,000 building a diversified, internationally spread financial portfolio and $0 on gear. Because collapse is not a wilderness survival scenario. It is a financial war, and you must prepare accordingly. The crisis is the beginning of the end of a global paradigm where expectations of endless economic growth crash against the reality of scarcity in limited sources, with implications including steep declines in living standards, new political landscapes, and potentially resource wars. This is the world the data points toward. And your bug-out bag will not help you negotiate that world. What will help you is multiple income streams, savings and assets that hold value under inflation, strong community bonds, marketable skills, and a clear-eyed understanding of what history actually shows. In the long history of humanity, upheaval and collapse of societies is more the normal state of affairs than stability, even. Civilizations considered ultra-stable have had massive upheavals, famines, and collapses throughout their histories. Collapse is not the exception. It is the recurring reality of human civilization. The question is never, will it happen? The question is always, are you actually prepared? Not with a bag, with a strategy, not with gear. With knowledge, skills, relationships, and financial resilience. History has already written the manual. Are you reading it? Now, we want to hear from you. Do you believe financial preparation is more important than physical prepping? Have you already diversified your savings internationally? Do you think the United States or your own country is showing the early warning signs that preceded Argentina's or Venezuela's collapse? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective matters, and this community learns from each other's experiences and insights. And if this story opened your eyes to something the mainstream financial media never tells you, please subscribe right now. Every week, we dig into the real history of money, markets, and survival, the kind of information that could genuinely protect your financial future when the systems everyone else depends on begin to crack. Subscribe, stay informed, stay prepared the right way.